There's a certain silence that follows betrayal. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that lingers in the soul. You trusted, you showed grace, you offered loyalty without a second thought. And in return, they gave you arrogance. They looked down on you, not realizing the weight of your patience. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your silence for submission. And with every boastful glance, with every dismissive word, they built a throne of delusion, never noticing it was made of glass. But here's the truth that time never forgets. Arrogance is a storm in disguise, and eventually it turns on the one who summoned it. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to lift a finger, because life has a language of its own, and it's already speaking on your behalf. This is not a message of revenge. It's a message of awakening, because the same eyes that once watched you fall will one day look up and see you standing. And in that moment, you'll understand. You were never broken, you were just being rebuilt. Arrogance is not strength, it is unresolved insecurity dressed in pride. There's a common illusion in the world that arrogance equals power, that the loudest voice commands the most respect, that confidence, when sharpened into cruelty or inflated into ego, becomes dominance. But when you look deeper, you begin to see a very different truth. Arrogance isn't a mark of strength, it's a shield, a performance, a loud, desperate attempt to hide the quiet fear that lives underneath. People who carry arrogance like armor often do so because they are terrified of being exposed. They puff themselves up because the weight of who they really are feels too fragile to carry. They speak over others because they are afraid that if they listened, they might hear something that challenges the story they've told themselves. Arrogance is not rooted in power. It is rooted in protection, the protection of a self too delicate to survive honesty. But here's what the arrogant never fully understand. Real strength never needs to announce itself. It moves quietly. It walks with humility. True power is calm because it's not afraid. It doesn't have to crush others to feel tall. It doesn't have to dominate rooms to feel seen. It doesn't wear a mask. It builds character. The ones who tried to humiliate you, speak over you, or diminish you in public or private, they weren't standing on solid ground. They were clinging to a fragile identity that couldn't afford your growth. And when they sensed your potential, instead of encouraging it, they felt threatened by it. So they did what insecure people do. They dressed their fear as confidence and aimed it at you. And maybe for a time they made you question yourself. Maybe you even believed their version of you. That's how arrogance works. It projects so forcefully that it can temporarily convince others that it's real. But it never lasts, because arrogance is hollow. It may echo loudly, but eventually everyone starts to hear the emptiness in its tone. In time, the mask slips, the cracks begin to show, the consequences of pride catch up, not through punishment, but through process. Arrogant people isolate themselves because no one truly trusts them. They destroy relationships because no one feels safe with them. And slowly their world shrinks, not because someone took it from them, but because their inflated ego couldn't carry the weight of reality. And you don't need to argue with them. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to keep growing quietly, with dignity. Because while they fall apart, trying to appear strong, you'll be building something real, something no one can take away. The truth has its own rhythm and it never fails to catch up. It's one of the most uncomfortable parts of being betrayed or mistreated, watching those who hurt you seem to flourish. They laugh louder, they walk taller, they move through life with the confidence of someone who thinks they've won. And for a moment you wonder if the truth even matters. You wonder if what they did, the lies, the arrogance, the manipulation, will ever come to light. You wonder if they'll ever be held accountable, or if this world just rewards the ones who pretend best. But life doesn't operate on your timeline, it operates on truth. And truth, though often quiet and patient, has a rhythm that never fails to reach its crescendo. People who build their lives on illusion can go far, but only for a while. They can charm, deceive, and manipulate their way into temporary success, but eventually, the weight of what they've ignored begins to press down. The lies they told to others become lies they must live with. The masks they wore to impress begin to suffocate. The consequences don't always arrive in loud, dramatic fashion. Sometimes they come in whispers, in broken relationships, in sleepless nights, in the quiet erosion of peace. You may not see it right away. In fact, you might not see it at all at first. But truth doesn't need an audience to do its work. It unfolds slowly, like seasons changing. It works through experience, through reflection, through time. And the longer someone runs from it, the more it chases them, not out of vengeance, but out of design. When someone has wronged you, their greatest fear is not being punished, it's being exposed. They know, even if only deep down, that they are living on borrowed time. They try to cover it with arrogance, with distraction, with control. But the truth has a way of seeping through cracks, no matter how tightly sealed the surface may seem. What matters most is that you stay aligned with truth, not with their narrative, not with your anger, not even with your need for closure. Because when you choose to stand with truth, you choose to live free, free from the emotional weight of carrying someone else's lies, free from the anxiety of watching their fake world rise. You don't need it to crash to be validated. You just need to keep walking in the light of what you know. Eventually, life catches up, not to punish, but to balance. What was hidden gets revealed, what was twisted gets straightened. And when that time comes, you won't have to say a word. You'll just stand where you are, strong, steady, and healed, while everything they built without truth begins to fall under its own weight. You don't need to seek revenge. Life is already doing the accounting. When you've been wronged, there's a natural instinct that rises inside you, a burning desire to be understood, to be vindicated, to make them feel what they made you feel. You imagine the words you'd say if given the chance, the confrontation, the exposure, the justice. And it makes sense, because betrayal doesn't just wound the heart, it insults the soul. It makes you feel small in a story you never asked to be part of. But here's what time teaches. Slowly, painfully, but always truthfully. You don't need to make them pay. You just need to step out of the way and let life handle what ego wants to control. Seeking revenge binds you to their level. It keeps your energy circling the same fire that burned you. You become reactive, always looking back, always carrying the weight of their actions. It might feel like power, but it's really a prison, one where you keep reliving what you deserve to walk away from. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing retribution is the moment you start healing. Not because they deserved your peace, but because you did. When you shift your focus from punishment to growth, you take your power back. You rise. You become everything they feared you would, not angry and broken, but whole and untouchable. What most people forget is that life keeps a quiet scorecard. Not in the way we wish, not with public downfalls or dramatic consequences, but in the still, inescapable reality of internal decay. People who hurt others don't walk away free, they walk away heavier. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but the echo of their choices follows them into their relationships, into their sleep, into their view of themselves. And no mask, no arrogance, no distraction can hide that for long. You may never get the apology. You may never hear the truth spoken out loud. But you will feel the shift. You'll feel the way their name loses its power, the way your memory becomes less about pain and more about wisdom. You begin to realize that they didn't break you, they revealed you. They exposed what you were capable of surviving. And that's something no revenge could ever give you. The great irony is this: the more they tried to hurt you, the more they prepared you. They forced you to grow, to become self-aware, to strengthen your boundaries, to build a life beyond their reach. And in doing so, they unknowingly became the lesson, not the victory. So don't look back hoping to watch their world fall. Look forward and build something so grounded, so full of peace and depth, that when their arrogance does collapse, you won't need to watch it. You'll already be long gone, too far above to care. You were never meant to be crushed by them. You were meant to rise above them. There are moments in life when it feels like someone is trying to erase you, not physically, but emotionally, like your worth, your voice, your presence somehow threatens them. They belittle, they dismiss, they take you for granted, while convincing others that you were never that significant to begin with. And over time, their arrogance begins to rewrite your reality. You start to question your value. You begin to shrink in spaces where you once stood tall. But here's what they never saw, and what you may have forgotten in the process. You were never meant to stay beneath their shadow. You were never meant to be defined by their inability to see your depth. Sometimes the people who try to crush you are doing so because they've already been crushed inside. And instead of healing, they turn that pain outward. They try to control what they don't understand. They envy what they cannot reach. And so they press down on you, hoping that if you break, they won't have to face their own brokenness. But real power is never born from destruction. It's born from endurance, from resilience, from learning to stand up in the aftermath of being overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. And that's where your story takes shape, not in the silence of your suffering, but in the strength that grew quietly beneath it. They thought you would stay down. That's often the assumption of those who mistake cruelty for control. But every time you chose to get back up, to keep your integrity, to protect your heart rather than harden it, you were rising. Slowly, invisibly at first, but rising nonetheless. What they didn't account for was that every attempt to bury you was actually building pressure, the kind that doesn't destroy but transforms, the kind that turns wounds into wisdom, pain into perspective, silence into strength. You weren't being broken, you were being refined. And now you're not who you were when they tried to dim your light. You've outgrown their narrative. You see them now for what they are, not monsters, but deeply insecure people playing loud games to avoid the quiet truth. And once you see it clearly, they lose their power. Their words don't land the same. Their arrogance doesn't intimidate. It reveals their fragility. Your healing is not just for you. It's a quiet revolution, a statement that says, "You could not break me. You only reminded me who I am." And you don't have to retaliate. You don't have to convince anyone. You just have to keep rising, because every step you take is a step away from their grip and toward your becoming. Their collapse will not be your victory. Your peace will be. There's a natural human instinct to want to see those who wronged you face the consequences of their actions. We imagine the moment when they realize their mistakes, when they understand the hurt they caused and the way their arrogance came back to haunt them. We envision the downfall, the exposure, the collapse of their carefully constructed world. It seems like justice. It seems like closure. It seems like victory. But here's where wisdom steps in, quiet but undeniable. Their downfall is not your victory. Your peace is. The idea of watching them crumble can feel like the only way to justify the pain they caused you. But what if I told you that peace doesn't come from their collapse? What if the real victory isn't in their failure, but in your freedom from it, in your ability to walk away, to let go, and to build a life that is no longer shackled to their wrongs? You see, their collapse is inevitable, but not because you wished it. Life has a way of bringing things full circle, but it's not your job to keep track of the score. It's not your responsibility to hold their fate in your hands. And when you realize that, you take away the power they once had over your mind, over your heart. You stop allowing their actions to dictate your emotional state. Imagine a life where you no longer check on their downfall. Imagine living without the constant need to see them pay for what they did. That is the moment you reclaim your energy. That is the moment you set yourself free. The truth is, their collapse is only truly meaningful to you if you are still attached to their story. And when you finally detach, when you stop waiting for them to fall in order to feel justified, you'll find something much deeper. Peace. A peace that is no longer dependent on external forces, on what they do or don't do. A peace that is rooted in your own growth, your own healing, your own understanding of what it means to rise above the chaos they tried to trap you in. When you let go of the need to see them punished, you create space for your own transformation. You let go of the weight of resentment. You stop being tied to the past, to the injustices that once defined you, and in that space, you find a strength that has nothing to do with them. It's a strength that is all your own, the one that was always there, quiet, resilient, steady. In the end, it's not their failure that will define your success. It's how you choose to live after the storm. It's how you choose to move forward, not as a victim of their arrogance, but as a victor in your own right. Because peace, true peace, doesn't come from the destruction of another person's world. It comes from the building of your own. And in that, you will find a freedom they can never touch.